So, last weekend I was away on a vacation, so there wasn't an episode of this series uploaded, but we're back now, ready to get back after it and get it back up and running. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week the off-season has started to settle down a bit, and the schedule for next season dropped as well, so there's still a good bit for us to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Screw, and they say that with all of the talent acquired this offseason between them, it is finals or bust for both the Lakers and the Nets. So yeah, next year, I don't really think it's a hot take to say that the Nets should be the favorites in the East and the Lakers should be the favorites in the West. After losing in the first round of the playoffs, the Lakers basically revamped their entire roster and brought in plenty of veteran experience and talent to surround LeBron James and Anthony Davis, while also acquiring Russell Westbrook in a trade, and with that much ammunition, they should be ready to dominate. The Nets didn't necessarily make much noise this offseason, but they did acquire Patty Mills to lead their bench unit, and simply getting all of their superstars back healthy is enough of a reason to be very high on them too, as the trio of Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving is better than any other trio in the NBA right now. So, going back to the original take here, does that mean their seasons will be a bust if they don't make it to the finals? Well, despite that seeming like an extreme overreaction, I do actually agree with it. Barring any health issues holding either side back, they are the two most talented teams in the league. The Lakers only have a finite amount of time left on the clock to compete for another title, with LeBron turning 37 years old later this year, and the Nets are a genuine super team at full strength, so they of course deserve lofty expectations. These teams have players like James Harden and Russell Westbrook too, still searching for their first rings, so if either side doesn't even make it that far, then without question, it would be considered a failure of a season. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from You're Not Funny, and they say that Ja Morant is the most overrated player in the NBA right now because of the fact that he's consistently ranked above players such as SGA and De'Aaron Fox. So I feel like I'm kind of losing my mind here, because this isn't the first time I've seen this topic of conversation discussed, but I really find it hard to believe people can still think this after the way that Ja Morant played in the play-in game and in the playoffs. The Grizzlies 2 seasons in a row were viewed as a team projected to be in the lottery in a strong Western Conference, and yet 2 years in a row, Morant played a huge role in leading them into the playoff hunt. Then this year they beat Steph Curry and the Warriors to make it into the big dance. Morant is a big game player who elevated his team across the board in the playoffs this year, and I'm sorry, but that matters a lot, and it's not something you can just ignore. In the playoffs against the Jazz, Morant averaged 30 points and 8 assists per game while shooting 49% from the field, including a 47-point performance, and when you bring up players like De'Aaron Fox and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander like this take did, it's just not fair to solely look at box score numbers from regular seasons without context. The playoffs will always outweigh the regular season. Players that excel in big moments get a boost, and regular season per game averages can only take you so far. So, to conclude here, I think it's crazy to call Ja Morant overrated, and it's especially egregious to place guys with big numbers on bad teams ahead of him right now, when Morant's play literally elevated a team nobody believed in far past what was expected of them. Obviously, per-game averages and production like that is important to analyze, but it's very simple-minded to simply look at numbers and draw conclusions off of them without actually watching the players play in big moments and using other context like that to rank them. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from OJ, and they say that the Miami Heat are losers of the offseason because of moves such as overpaying Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry, plus retaining Victor Oladipo, who might not play until March. Now, this one's certainly a hot take, and while there can be some valid criticism of some of the moves they made this offseason, I really disagree with the idea of placing them into the quote-unquote losers category. After making the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago, they undoubtedly finished last year in disappointment as they got swept in the first round by the Bucks. They needed reinforcements to get back into contention, and the options for doing so were a bit limited this offseason. So coming away with Kyle Lowry is definitely one of the best options that were available to them. Now, is Lowry overpaid for his age? Yeah, he probably is by making $30 million over the next 3 years, when he's already 35 years old and slowing down a bit. However, he's still playing at a borderline all-star level, and he has championship experience, and on top of that, he gives them another shot creator and shooter to take pressure off of Jimmy Butler, who did struggle in the playoffs last season. Then with Oladipo, it's obviously a risk with how long he'll be out injured, but he's only signed to a 1-year contract for basically the minimum, so it's absolutely a risk worth taking with them. I don't necessarily think he'll come back to be a huge factor after having an inconsistent season last year, plus now with health issues to overcome. However, I do still think he can provide a spark in bunches, and his perimeter defense should still be valuable for a playoff run as long as he comes back and gets a few regular season games under his belt before the big dance starts. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Jake, and he says that Ben Simmons is still an all-star caliber player even after his poor showing against the Hawks in the playoffs. So, Ben has been one of the most polarizing players in the league since the season ended, and there's no denying that his stock around the league is lower than it's ever been. He is a 3-time All-Star, and he also just finished as the runner-up in the Defensive Player of the Year voting, but as I said earlier in this video, playoff performance matters most, and he definitely played poorly when it mattered. However, the regular season has never been the issue for him, so it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him come out next year and once again play at an all-star level. He very well could be named an all-star once again next season, but the difference now is that nobody is going to be willing to give him credit for it until that production carries over into the playoffs. Whether he's still in Philadelphia, or if he does eventually get traded, next year's postseason is going to be the biggest moment of his career to this point, as he could possibly overcome it and finally play at a level we know he can play at, or he could crumble again and get exposed for shrinking every time it matters. We'll just have to see. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.